Hello everyone, welcome back to the next video. In this video we'll be going through this blog post of the release of React version 19. Let's go. React 19 is now stable. Additions: since this post was originally shared with React 19 RC in April, so pre-warming for suspended trees, see improvements to suspense, React DOM static APIs, new React DOM statics APIs. The date for this post has been updated to reflect the stable release date. React version 19 is now available on npm. I think one good thing is that if you are using Next.js 15, I guess it was still referencing React 19 RC blah 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 blah, something like that. Hopefully that they don't have to do that, they can directly pinpoint to React 19. In our React 19 upgrade guide, we shared step-by-step instructions for upgrading your app to React 19. In this post we will give you an overview of the new features in React 19 and how you can adopt them. So what's new in React 19 actions? A common use case in React app is to perform a data mutation and then update the state in response. For example, when a user submits a form to change their name, you will make an API request and then handle the response. In the past, you would need to handle pending state, error, optimistic updates and sequential request manually. For example, you could handle the pending and error state in use state. So something like this: update name, I have a state for name, state for error, and state just to check whether the API was completed or not. And on handle submit, set pending is true. So here I'm calling my API, set pending false. If there is error, then set the error return, otherwise redirect to this particular page. And here they have just created one button of handle submit. In React 19 we are adding support for using async function in transition to handle pending state, errors, forms and optimistic updates automatically. For example, you can use transition to handle the pending state for you. So here is the same example as above. So name, error, and here they are using use transition instead of pending state. And on submit of it, we just start this transition, call our API. If there is an error, we set the error, otherwise we just do a redirect of path. And here you can see we are disabling the button depending on the is pending status of use transition. The async transition will immediately set the is pending state to true, make the async request and switch is pending to false after any transition. This allows you to keep the current UI responsive and interactive while the data is changing. By convention, functions that use async transition are called actions. Actions automatically manage submitting data for you pending state. Actions provide a pending state that starts at the beginning of a request and automatically resets when the final state update is committed. Optimistic updates: action supports the new use optimistic hook, so you can show users instant feedback while the requests are submitting. Error handling: actions provide error handling, so you can display error boundaries when a request fails and revert optimistic updates to their original value automatically. Form elements now support passing functions to the action and form action props. Passing function to the action prop use actions by default and reset the form automatically after submission. Building on top of action, React 19 introduces use optimistic to manage optimistic updates and new hook, react.use action state to handle common cases for action. In React DOM, we are adding form actions to manage forms automatically and use form status to support the common use cases for actions in form. In React 19, the above example can be simplified too. So here you can see they are using something like use action state, and here they are using previous state form data. So here they have wrapped it with a form. Previously we didn't have any form, I guess. So if I go to the previous example, there was no form element as such. So they have just taken a form element, they have taken an input for text of type name, and they have taken this button. Then they are using this use action state. So they are using this previous state as well as form data, and here is our update name. So I'm just calling this API. If there is any error, I'm returning the error back, otherwise I'm redirecting it and returning null over here as well as null over here. So yeah, this simplifies the approach even more. I'm not sure, I mean, once we started using it in production, then I think everyone will have a better view of it. But yeah, like returning null, I don't really like this, but yeah, let's see how it plays out. In the next section, we'll break down each of the new action features in React 19. New hook, use action state, I think, yeah, the one which we saw here. To make the common cases easier for actions, we have added a new hook called use action state. So here you can get error, submit action, as well as is pending using the use action state. And we just do const error is equal to await update name, sending our name, and if there is any error, return the error back, otherwise we return null. Use action state accepts a function, the action, and returns a wrapped action to call. This works because actions compose. When a wrapped action is called, use action state will return the last result of the action as data and the pending state of the action as pending. React.use action state was previously called react.dom.use form state in the canary release, but we have renamed it and deprecated use form state. For more information, see the docs. Actions are also integrated with React 19's new form features. For React DOM, we have added support for passing functions as the action and form action props of form, input, and button elements to automatically submit forms with action. So here is our form and we are submitting some action. When a form action succeeds, React will automatically reset the form for uncontrolled components. If you need to reset the form manually, you can call the new request form reset React DOM API. For more information, see the React DOM docs for form, input, and button. React DOM new hook use form status. In design systems, it's common to write design components that need access to information about the form they are in without drilling props down to the component. This can be done via context, but to make the common case easier, we have added a new hook use form status. So use form status. And here I think I was using this in Next.js as well, so I don't think this is anything new. Use form status reads the status of the parent form as if the form was a context provider. For more information, see the React DOM docs for use form. New hook use optimistic. Another common UI patterns when performing a data mutation is to show the final state optimistically while the async request is underway. In React 19, we have added a new hook called use optimistic to make this easier. So here we are using use optimistic to show the final state optimistically while the async request is underway. Okay, so here they are using something called use optimistic. They are taking a current name as a prop, and once the action is submitted, I am getting the name from our form data, setting the optimistic name as new name, and then again calling an API, and on update name updating our name. Like, I didn't really get this. I don't know, maybe once more and more people make content on this, things would be clearer. But I'm little confused, like why they are taking this current name over here for as a prop and then they are just updating it over here. I'm not sure what's the use case of this. The use optimistic hook will immediately render the optimistic name while the update name request is in progress. When the update finishes or errors, React will automatically switch to the current name value. For more information, see the docs for use optimistic. New API use. In React 19, we are introducing a new API to read resources in render use. For example, you can read a promise with use and React will suspend until the promise resolves. So here you can import use and use will suspend until the promise resolves. So here we are passing some promise to it, and then we just do contents.map content, and then create a comment, sorry, not content, comments, and here we just do a suspense fallback comments, passing our promise to this. This looks pretty nice, but we'll see. Like, most of this is I mostly use Next.js for this. Like, no one uses create React app anymore, so we'll have to see how this plays out eventually. Use does not support promise created in a render. If you try to pass a promise created in a render to use, React will warn a component was suspended by an uncached promise. Creating promise inside a client component or hook is not yet supported except via suspense compatible library or framework. To fix, you need to pass a promise from suspense powered library or framework that supports caching for promises. In the future, we plan to ship features to make it easier to cache promises in render. You can also read context with use, allowing you to read context conditionally, such as after early return. So here we are importing use from React, and here is our theme context, and so something like this would not work with use context because of the early return. The use API can only be called in render similar to hooks. Unlike hooks, use can be called conditionally. In the future, we plan to support more ways to consume resources in render with use. For more information, see the docs for use. New React DOM static APIs. We have added 2 new APIs to React DOM static for static site generation, pre-render and pre-render to node stream. These new APIs improve on render to string by waiting for data to load for static HTML generation. They are designed to work with streaming environments like Node.js stream and WebStream. For example, in a WebStream environment, you can pre-render a React tree to static HTML with pre-render. Yeah, so this looks pretty nice, but I wonder how to easily use this. Pre-render APIs will wait for all data to load before returning the static HTML stream. Streams can be converted to a string or sent with a streaming response. They do not support streaming content as it loads, which is supported by the existing React DOM server rendering APIs. For more information, see the React DOM static APIs. Next is React Server Components. Server Components are a new option that allows rendering components ahead of time before bundling in an environment separate from your client application or SSR server. This separate environment is the server in React Server Component. Server component can run once at build time on your CI server, or they can be run on for each request using a web server. React 19 includes all of the React Server Component features included from the Canary channel. This means libraries that are shipped with server components can now target React 19 as a peer dependency with React Server export condition for use in framework that support the full stack React architecture. How do I build support for server components? While React Server Components in React 19 are stable and will not break between major versions, the underlying APIs used to implement a React Server Component bundler or framework do not allow server and make break between minors in React 19. To support React Server Component as a bundler or a framework, we recommend pinning to a specific React version or use the Canary release. We will continue working with bundlers and frameworks to stabilize the API used to implement React Server Components in the future. Server actions allow client components to call async functions executed on the server. When a server action is defined with the use server directive, your framework will automatically create a reference to the use server function and pass that reference to the client component. When that function is called on the client, React will send a request to the server to execute the function and return the result. There is no directive for server component. A common misunderstanding is that server components are denoted by use server, but there is no directive for server component. The use server directive is used for server actions. Server actions can be created in server components and passed as a prop to client components, or they can be imported and used in client components. Improvements in React 19: ref as a prop. Starting in React 19, you can access ref as a prop for functional components. So previously we can't directly pass ref, we have to use something like forward ref, something like that. So yeah, this is a good thing to have. But I honestly don't like passing refs as a prop. But yeah, I try to avoid it. New functional components will no longer need the forward ref, and we will be publishing a code mod to automatically update your components to use the new ref prop. In future versions, we will deprecate and remove forward ref. Diffs for hydration errors. We have also improved error reporting for hydration errors in React DOM. For example, instead of logging multiple errors in dev without any information about the mismatch, we now log a single message with a diff of the mismatch. So something like this. And context as a provider in React 19, you can render context as a provider instead of context.provider. A new context provider can now use context when we will be publishing a code mod to convert existing providers. In future versions, we will deprecate context.provider. Cleanup function for refs. We now support returning a cleanup function from ref callbacks. When the component unmounts, React will call the cleanup function from the ref callback. This works for DOM ref, refer to class components, and use imperative handle. Previously, React would call ref functions with null when unmounting the component. If your ref returns a cleanup function, React will now skip this step. In future version, we will deprecate calling refs with nulls when unmounting components. Due to the introduction of ref cleanup function, returning anything else from a ref callback will now be rejected by TypeScript. This fix is usually to stop using implicit returns. For example, something like this. Okay, the original code written the instance of the HTML div element in TypeScript wouldn't know if this was supposed to be a cleanup function, or if you didn't want to return a cleanup function, you can code mod this pattern with no implicit ref callback return. Use deferred value initial value. We have added an initial value option to use deferred value. When initial value is provided, use deferred value will return it as a value for the initial render of the component and schedule a re-render in the background with the deferred value return. For more, see use deferred value. Support for document metadata. In HTML, document metadata tags like title, link and meta are reserved for placement in the head section of the document. In React, the component that decides what metadata is appropriate for the app may be very far from the place where you render the head, or React does not render the head at all. In the past, these elements would need to be inserted manually in an effect or by libraries like React Helmet, and required careful handling when server rendering a React application. In React 19, we are adding support for rendering document metadata tags in components natively. So yeah, I think this is nice. When React renders this component, it will see the title, link, metadata tag and automatically hoist them to the head section of a document. By supporting this metadata tags natively, we are able to ensure they work with client-only apps, streaming SSR and server components. You may still want a metadata library for simple use cases. Rendering document metadata as tag may be suitable, but libraries can offer more powerful features like overriding generic metadata with specific metadata based on the current route. These features make it easier for framework and libraries like React Helmet to support metadata tags rather than replace them. For more info, see the docs for title, links and metadata. Support for style sheet. Style sheet, both externally linked and inline, require careful positioning in the DOM due to the style precedence rules. Building a style sheet capability that allows for composability within components is hard, so users often end up either loading all of their styles far from the component that may depend on them, or they use a style library which encapsulates this complexity. In React 19, we are addressing this complexity and providing even deeper integration into concurrent rendering on the client and streaming rendering on the server with built-in support for style sheet. If you tell React the precedence of your style sheet, it will manage the insertion order of the style sheet in the DOM and ensure that the style sheet, if external, is loaded before revealing content that depends on those style rules. So I have never used something like this, but yeah, this could be helpful for someone having a big application. During server-side rendering, React will include the style sheet in the head, which ensures that the browser will not paint until it has loaded. If the style sheet is discovered late, after we have already started streaming, React will ensure that the style sheet is inserted into the head on the client before revealing the content of a suspense boundary that depends on that style sheet. During client-side rendering, React will wait for newly rendered style sheet to load before committing the render. If you render this component from multiple places within your application, React will only include the style sheet once in the document. For users accustomed to loading style sheet manually, this is an opportunity to locate those style sheet along with the components that depend on them, allowing for a better local reasoning and an easier time ensuring you only load the style sheets that you actually depend on. Style libraries and style integration with bundlers can also adapt this new capability, so even if you don't directly render your own style sheet, you can still benefit as your tools are upgraded to use these features. Support for async scripts. In HTML, normal scripts and deferred scripts load in document order, which makes them rendering this kind of scripts deep within your component tree challenging. Async scripts, however, will load in arbitrary code. In React 19, we included better support for async scripts, allowing you to render them anywhere in your component tree inside the components that actually depend on the script without having to manage relocating and deduplicating script instances. In all rendering environment, async scripts will be deduplicated so that React will only load and execute the script once, even if it is rendered by multiple different components. In server-side rendering, async scripts will be included in the head and prioritized behind more critical resources that block paint, such as style sheet, fonts and image preload. For more details, read the docs for script. Support for preloading resources. During initial document load, add on client-side updates telling the browser about resources that it will likely need to load as early as possible can have a dramatic effect on page performance. React 19 include a number of new APIs for loading and preloading browser resources to make it easy as possible to build great experiences that aren't held back by inefficient resource loading. So this is my component. Here I can pre-init it, I can preload it, prefetch DNS, pre-connect, and the above would result in the following DOM HTML. So yeah, something like this. These APIs can be used to optimize initial page load by moving discovery of additional resources like fonts out of style sheet loading. They can also make client updates faster by prefetching a list of resources used by an anticipated navigation and then eagerly preloading those resources on click or even on hover. For more details, see resource preloading APIs. Compatibility with third-party scripts and extensions. We have improved hydration to account for third-party scripts and browser extension. When hydrating, if an element that renders on the client doesn't match the element found in the HTML form from the server, React will force a client re-render to fix up the content. Previously, if an element was inserted by third-party script or browser extension, it would trigger a mismatch error and client render. In React 19, unexpected tags in the head and body will be skipped over, avoiding the mismatch error. If React needs to re-render the entire document due to unrelated hydration mismatch, it will leave in place style sheet inserted by third-party script and browser extension. Better error reporting. We have improved error reporting in React 19 to remove duplication and provide options for handling caught and uncaught errors. For example, when there is an error in render caught by an error boundary, previously React would throw the error twice, once for the original error and then again after failing to automatically recover, and then call console.error with info about where the error occurred. This resulted in 3 errors for every caught error. In React 19, we log a single error with all the error information included. Additionally, we have added 2 new root options to complement on recoverable error. On caught error, called when a React catches an error in an error boundary. Uncaught error, called when an error is thrown and not caught by an error boundary. On recoverable error, called when an error is thrown and automatically recovered. For more info and examples, see the docs for create root and hydrate root. Support for custom elements. React 19 adds full support for custom element and passes all tests on custom elements everywhere. In past versions, when using custom elements in React 19 has been difficult because React treated unrecognized props as attributes rather than properties. In React 19, we have added support for properties that works on the client and during SSR with the following strategy. Server-side rendering. Props passed to custom element will render as attributes if their type is primitive value like string, number, or the value is true. Props with non-primitive types like object, symbol, function, or value false will be omitted. Client-side rendering. Props that match a property on the custom element instance will be assigned as properties, otherwise they will be assigned as attributes. Thanks to Joey RR for driving the design and implementation of custom element support in React. How to upgrade? See the React 19 upgrade guide for step-by-step instruction and full list of breaking and notable changes. So yeah, that's it. Hopefully Next.js, I'm more interested in Next.js, how Next.js implements it. I think Next.js has already implemented all of this. It's more about stability now. Let's see how thing goes, and I think Remix will also catch up. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.